So what we'll do now is we'd already seen that student service was working and core service was working. We need to create one more module, and that module needs to be our Eureka server because we are going to create one API gateway. But before that, we need to keep the server up and running. So we'll add one more module. For this one, you can directly download the project and then go ahead, or probably you can create one module called as Eureka server. Rest everything will be same. You click on create. So if you notice, we have this one here. Currently, we will not check on the source part. In the resources though, we need to create application YAML file like we did before. So here, application dot YAML file. In the XML file, what needs to be added, we'll check it out later. So currently what we are going to do is for the server to be up and running, the port number will be 8761. This is the default port number that you can take. And you will have to keep it as a registered server. So Eureka, then we need to also give the client. So when we are going to give the client in which we are going to have uh, like currently this will be acting like the server. So register with Eureka. I'm going to keep it as false. In the same way, fetch registry. I'm going to keep it as false. So for now, currently we have created the YAML file application, but we need to still create the uh, form.xml. We need to do some changes. So repeating it, server port number is 8761. Since this itself is acting like a server, we do not have any registry, like we do not have any other Eureka server which is in place from which we are going to access the registry. No, we have to just make sure that the core service and then the student service needs to get registered as a client though. But this whole application will not register itself as a client. Hence, that register with Eureka is given as false because this itself acts like a server, need not have any kind of client application. So the other microservices should register to this. Okay, that is the only part in this. In form.xml, what we need to do is we need to add in few of the dependencies. So whenever we're going ahead with the dependencies, first thing is for this one, there is something called as cloud starter. So one is cloud starter gateway you can add, and also for you can also take something called as Netflix Eureka client, and normal Spring Boot services will be on. So what I'll do is I'm going to open the browser. I don't know if you're able to see this. Okay, in the dependencies part, if you check for Eureka, okay, so here you have this Eureka Discovery Client and Eureka Server. I'm going to go ahead with Eureka Server. Okay, that might be one of the thing that you're going to use. And then in case if you're going ahead with that uh, gateway and stuff, then you might need mm, gateway. So you would be needing Cloud Gateway also. And rest of the things, I think the test and all you used to have it in case if you had a test module written for this. For now, you just click on this. I'll not generate, sorry. I'll explore this. If you come down, you'll be getting these two. That is cloud dependency, okay, which is a starter gateway server, and also you have this one. So these three I'm going to copy and paste here, and just make sure that the dependencies is closed. Okay. Now, just here, right? I'll not take WebMVC. I'll keep it as a gateway server. And here, let this be, mm, I think I did something wrong. I don't think so. We need this though. Okay, we will only keep it as Eureka Starter Cloud Netflix Eureka Server. That's it for the Eureka Server. Okay. Nothing extra other than this. Although in the main file, we will be removing this main file. So we have to tell the application that this will be our main server. Like this is going to be the main server. So I'm going to create one class. We'll keep it as Eureka Server configuration or application or something. So this one, you can copy. I'm just going to copy this. Okay. And since my Maven dependencies has to be fulfilled, then Spring. Okay. We need to come back to the pom.xml of the entire project. So this one. Once you come down here. So if you would come back to your, when we had copied this and pasted, right? That is this MVC we didn't need. We copy pasted this one. If you scroll down, there is something called as dependency management. There was this particular block, which we have to write it in the um, main pom.xml file of the main project of the microservices project. So if you come down here, mm, in this case, if you come down to this pom.xml below, however, all these things are linked here, Eureka server and all this stuff in the modules, but it might give you certain errors. Just copy and paste, just check if there is any changes. But currently, if I'm going ahead with this one, the entire setup which you saw here, just cross check if it is the same. So we have this Spring Cloud dependencies version, Pomodoro dependencies, this whole stuff from this dependency management. This is not in any of the project, not in the Eureka server for the student course, right? If I just complete this, and then if you just click on this particular part, you will get this form.xml. Here, below the properties, you put this one. And probably instead of taking 4.0.2, if you can go for, because once when I tried, this might give you error, hence 3.2.5 probably. Check on this one. You just reload the dependencies. Okay. So this is giving us cloud version central. We'll just recheck again. Probably here for the properties, Spring Cloud version, if I include this, it might work. Let me just think. So this is the line I included. Dependencies version. Let it download all the services. So I've got few warnings though. Refresh again. So if you look at these, it is saying Spring Boot Starter Web MVC test. This one is missing because the version we mentioned was a little bit changed. So what we'll do is I have student service, all the service form files are there. I'll just close all of them. We'll just start debugging one after the other. We'll go to just the core service form.xml, okay? And I'm just going to remove this one and then reload. So here what we have done is, I think one of the, yeah, there were three statements like this. Now we have left with only two statements because in bomb.xml we had this 4.0 initially. Now we made it as 3.2.5. So when we did that, I think the dependencies here also changes with respect to uh, the courses, sorry, with respect to the POM which we are going to have for the core service and as well as our student service. So if you notice, it was telling us that web MVC, we could not find it. So once we made it as web, that went. Now, if you look at the thing again, it is saying boot starter hyphen data hyphen JPA test. So this is the one it is blaming right now. So in JPA test, instead of that, I'm just going to make it as JPA and then reload it. Let's see if it is going to disappear. Okay, so I think now we are left with only one, and that one is this. Your Spring Boot startup web MVC hyphen test was there, right? I'm just going to make it as web. Let's see. Did it make any change? Uh, we'll just check out what is the web test one, or do we have any other stuff? So here, I'll just remove this web and see, because in 3.2.5, oh yes, all the errors vanished. So the same thing I have to do with the student form.xml. Okay, we did course right now. I'll come to the student one. So in student, the first one would be this one. MVC I have to change. I have to keep it web. And JPA test, I have to make it as JPA. This web MVC I'm going to remove. And then rerun this, reload this. It's synced up. Now we'll come to Eureka Server. We were here. Okay. Import class. Spring Boot application. And now we have to make this as our actual server. So one more annotation you need to give, and that would be Eureka Server. So if you know that enable configuration was one of the notation, right? Like enable auto configuration like that. We have enable Eureka Server. This is one of the configuration which we need to do. So this is done. This is not core service application class. This is the current server because I copied from there, right? So whatever class name you had given here, the same thing you have to give it here. Okay, this is done. Now we have to write the API gateway. So currently what happened is core services I had done. I'll just repeat what I did. In core services, no, first what I did is I created Eureka Server. In Eureka Server, I have given the resources, application YAML, That is, this will be the server and the port number is 8761. This will just start. And I have created a file. In order to use these to enable configurations and stuff, what I did is I came to the main file, that is the student course thing. I came here and I changed 3.2.5 for some reason because it was not running. This dependency is what I did is when you go to your current part, right? Like this one. So you had taken Eureka Server, right? So if you take Eureka Server and click on this Explore, you will notice that they have given the dependencies as Eureka Server, but along with that, they had given this dependency management. I just copied and pasted there. One more thing that I pasted is this. Okay, and I made properties as Java version 21 and then Spring Cloud version as 2023.0.1. Okay. So after I finished this is again in the student course microservice pom.file. Here I had done 3.2.5. When I loaded the Maven dependencies, it gave me error. So I went into course service, I jumped into pom.xml, and here this was all fine. Web MVC, wherever it was, I changed it to web. Second thing is this JPA hyphen test, it was, I made it as JPA. And here it was hyphen web MVC hyphen test, that I made it as just hyphen test. Same thing I did it with student pom.xml as well. So we are here. Now we are going to create a API gateway. So if I'm going to create one module, and in this module, I'm going to make it as here in this resource file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the student and the configuration of the course as well. So I'll keep it as API underscore gateway. Hit enter. Now we need to make some changes in this case as well. So I'll just remove this off. Currently we created API gateway. Now in API gateway, one generic port we have to give. Once we give a generic port, through that generic port, we are going to achieve the application, that is courses and students. That thing we have to do first. And this will be registered as client because uh, the other two members are there, right? That is the student and course. Those has to be registered as client because Eureka server first it should run, then course, then student, and then API gateway. Okay, we need to do certain configuration settings. So here in pom.xml, we'll go to our browser. So in the browser, we had, we'll come back, close this. Gateway, Eureka Discovery Client I'll keep. Okay, I'll click on Explore. In this, you will notice that there is this one, gateway, and then the client. Okay, I'll copy these two. I'll come down here. And this is API gateways pom.xml. So what we are going to do in this pom.xml, we are going to make some changes. So here, when you paste this, don't forget to close the dependencies. Okay, once you close, these two are the ones which I had taken. So currently what is happening is in Cloud Starter Gateway, this web MVC is the newest one, but I don't want this because I'm using 3.2 point something, 2.5. So I'm just removing this one off. And for the client, let it be there. Client, there is no issues at all. So this will be spring dot hyphen cloud hyphen starter hyphen gateway. I think the server is also being removed. So once you reload it to make sure that it is running fine, I think there is no build errors. Okay, so now once you go to the you see this main file, I'm going to remove this one. Okay, and I'm going to create a file. I'll name it as API gateway application or something. Once this is done, hit enter. So here also you have to provide Spring Boot application. Okay. And in this one, like how you added in the course, right? Same thing. Copy and paste. Instead of this one, it will be API gateway dot class. Okay. We are going to create an object of that particular class. So this is a Spring Boot application. This part is done. You have to come down to resources. In resources, you're going to create a file. Now this file will be important one because here we are going to redirect what we need to do. This will be application.yaml where you're going to register your clients, and those clients will be your courses which is running in 8081. You also have students which is running in 8082. So here it will be server and port colon. Here it will be 8085. I'll keep. You can keep any port number. For me, that made sense. Jenkins is running on 8080. That's why. Spring. I'm going to take cloud gateway. Okay. So after this, you are going to provide the routes. Now, in this, the first route will be for the ID, that is your course service. So here I'm going to give it as course service. The next one will be your URI. So all this URI and everything should be under ID. Okay. So URI. So if you notice your HTTP colon localhost, the port number was 8081. Okay. Then you have predicates. Okay. Anything that is following the path. This will be path equals. So anything that follows slash courses slash. Okay. So this is fine. I'm just going to copy the same thing. Paste it here. Instead of course service, I'll make it as student service. Now our student service is running on 8082. So this will be students. Okay, anything after the students. I hope the indentation is clear here. So once this much is set up, so what we need to do, we'll go to the student. First, we'll check all these things are running fine or no. So first I'll go to Eureka Server, run this and see if there is any errors. Okay, started the application. So this is fine. After this, I'm going to go for courses. Okay, run this. What is it showing? JPA repository does not exist. Why? We'll go to pom.xml. Did I remove JPA? Let's check once. This scope test is given, right? I'm going to remove this one. Reload. And I'll run this. By the way, in pom.xml for course service, right? I removed, there was a scope for JPA as test. I removed that. I think it will fix. Okay. Started course application. Awesome. Then we'll go to student service. So first Eureka server, then course service. Then I think student also will give me that error. Let me see. Mm. Okay. This is something new. We'll come to student service, form.xml. Remove this. We'll reload. We'll run the student again. So it had the same issue then. That is, if you go to form.xml of student, we had that scope as test. I removed it. Then we are left with API gateway. We'll run this. Mhm. Okay, so if you remember, 8085 was my gateway port. Okay, let me see if it is making some sense now. Once we run this in the designated port, so here I'll take it as this get method is there, right? This one. Now I have to use the gateway server. So if I have it as 8085 and hit enter, I'm getting everything. So my API gateway is working. Awesome. In the same way, I have to check for student as well. Okay, students also is working. What you have to understand is, see here it was 8081 and currently from API gateway, that is 8085, I'm able to access this. Here also from 8085 students, I'm able to access it. So that is working fine. So what is the next thing that is left out? Well, there are many things. I'll stop all of this. We didn't communicate between the servers, right? So I'll just close all of this. Now, in the student class, if I want to check, like you have got this student ID, student name, student description, and then the CID. But I want to get based on the CID, that is if CID is equal to 1, then it was Java Spring Boot, and then the description was something with respect microservices with respect to Java Spring Boot. That also should appear. If that has to be the case, then I have to do some communication in between. So what I'll do. Okay. So here in the student service, right? I'm going to create one more folder right now. Okay. And that folder is acting like a client. And also in my controller, I need to specify certain paths so that I get that access of those uh, course also included inside my student. So just in case here, wherever CID 1 is there, right? What I'm trying to achieve is um, these three things also I should be able to see based on some endpoint, because now the inter service communication should happen. So for that, what we'll do, so under student service, what I'll do is first I'll create a package called as client. Okay. I'll also create one package called as DTO. I would need course DTO here. Okay. And inside DTO, I'm going to create one class called as course. So you can keep it as just course or course DTO. Currently, I'm just keeping it as course. So everything what was there in course, right? I'm going to take all this, copy annotations, not so much. Okay. Now, why is this required? Because I need to get all the content right. Probably you can give an annotation for data. Okay. So in order to retrieve the CID based on CID, CNAME and description, you have to store that in a particular course object itself. So under DTO, I'm taking it as course. This part is done. Okay. So once this is done, I'm assuming I'm in, yeah, here, this part is done, correct? So under the client, we need to create a course client, which will be able to communicate. So here I'm going to keep it as under the student, you have a client which is communicating with the course. So course client or something. Okay. In here, you have to say that which is the service that you are trying to interact. Once if you go to your source, right? And then main resource, if you look at properties, here it is giving as course service. Okay. So you need to check what is the name mentioned there as well. So in our case, what we are going to do, we are going to communicate with this one. Also, you have this URL as well. Where it is listed, it is also listed in API gateway. If you go here in the course resources in application, you have given the ID as course-service. Okay, remember this one. I'll just copy this. So in the course client, what we are going to do, we're going to take a Feign client annotation. Here, mm, for this one, name, and we have the property, just a second. Why is it asking me to add? Didn't I add it? Feels like I didn't add it. Mm. This is my, no, I'm in API gateway, right? So I have to come to student, student form.xml. Okay, here I have not added the dependency. Okay, add this dependency and then reload this. Okay, this is the dependency that I'm adding in student service, that is under this one form.xml. I added. Now I'm able to import the class. So from this, what we are trying to achieve is we are going to create one client that I said it is going to map it to the course service. So what is the URL for it? You can directly copy it from that application YAML, I guess. This is the URL. Okay. So from that URL, you are going to communicate. Now in this one, let me make it as, instead of class, let me take it as interface. Whoever implements this interface needs to have this one, and you're going to take get mapping. And we are going to give the endpoint courses and based on the ID. Okay. Means if I'm going to give courses /1, then it has to actually retrieve all the courses, let us say. So I'm going to give course based on the particular ID that you're going to send. Get course by ID. Okay. Now how we used to give it in the path variable, in the same way, path variable. You're going to take which is the path variable, we can just identify that is the ID is the one, which is the path variable. And which type is it? Type is log. This course is coming from your DTO. Okay. So this is done. We have taken now client, from the client, we are going to take the name that is your core service. URL is localhost 8081, and we've taken an interface, which is the course client, which is nothing but semicolon is missing. From /courses/id, it is going to map whether that particular ID is available or no. Based on that, it is going to return you the course. Now, we'll go to student controller. In the student controller, we are going to create one endpoint and expose. So here, this map is there, right? We have to use the mapping that we have been given in this course client, that is /courses/id. We'll come back here. Now in this, we are going to give get mapping. In the mapping, we are going to use first id / we're going to go ahead with course. Did I give the same thing there? Courses/id. Okay, fine. That is, it is going to give get course by id. Correct. Here, we're going to map it. Now, while mapping, we are going to give public map. Two things you have to pass. One is string, comma, object. Basically, you're mapping it with respect to the students. So get student with course details. Okay. So based on the student, you're going to give path variable. Here you can take an ID, import this class. So what happens here is first you take the student, okay, whichever student, like if it is Shilpa, then the ID will be 1. So student is equal to take the repository, that is the student repository. Okay. Dot. You're going to, however, find by ID. Maybe this one I can keep. Okay, find by ID. Based on the ID, you're going to throw the exception. That particular ID does not exist, or does it exist? So on. In the same way, you will take one course. And here, based on the course that you have entered, you need to create a course client. So you just created this course client here, right? In the same way, here, private final, you're taking an object and injecting it here. Course client. Okay. So this one you have to import. Now in the course client, what you're doing, you're going to your mm, courses service. In that course service, we have this one, get course by ID, in which we are trying to get the CID. That is your, from the student, we have this getters and setters. So whatever student object you have collected, if there is a student existing of that particular ID, then you take that student ID. Based on that, get CID, you will be fetching the CID alone. That is, if it is 1, 2, or 3, whatever. Okay. Through getters and setters. So you have the course ready right now. In case if there is student existing, you took the course, you mapped it onto this particular item. Now map string, comma, object, because this is what you're returning. You're going to take the response. So in the response, you're going to create one hash map or something. Okay. We're going to add the student response. So you can give response dot put. We can add student. Okay. And then pass the student. You also have course right now. So what you give, response dot put. You're going to pass the course. So here you're going to pass the course that you have retrieved. This student and this course. If the student exists, then the course also will be mapped. So these two things you have put in the current map, and that is what you're going to return as well. So you're going to return response. So basically what happens is, if I give a particular ID, like slash students is this particular controller, slash students, and I'm having, oh, I missed slash here. Slash ID is whatever one slash course, if you want to retrieve all the things that the student has taken with respect to course. Basically, you have a client also here. Okay, in this, it is going to go to your course service for this particular URL, which is the function you are going to call there in your course service. If you go to your controller, right, you have this get course by ID. So based on whichever course you are going to fetch there, if it is one, then one will be passed here. And it is going to retrieve all the CNAME and description of that particular thing. So you created one client which is going to interact. You came to the student controller. Here, what you're passing is, if I'm having slash one slash course, that means this, whatever you are passing here is an ID of the student. Like one is Shilpa, let us say. You passed one slash course, which course she has taken, you want to know. So if Shilpa is existing, the student ID will be fetched. So when you come across this one here, yeah, student ID is equal to 1. I don't know if postman is visible. Okay. So here, when you give slash student slash 1, let us say, still now I have not done this. So if you give this, oh, I have to run that service. Sorry. So I'll come down somewhere where I had taken that one. Ah, this is course. This student. Okay. When you give, this will be 8085, let us say, slash student slash 3 means you are taking this stuff. And then CID is equal to 2. So this whole thing is fetched, which means student is existing. Now you have to catch hold of the CID. How will you get it? By get CID method, because we have getters and setters, right? By get CID, you fetched it, and in course you have you will go to your controller where CID you have passed it as to. So it's CNAME and description you're going to take. You create one map object wherein you give a string and an object. String name is student. Object that you have passed is student. One more object you are going to put course. That course will be nothing but for CID to whatever course was available. Like in my case, it was .NET, I think. That one will be fetched and then put into this particular map. This will be sent back as a response. Now again, what we are going to do, we are going to run Eureka Server first, then the course, then the student, and then the API gateway. So run this, then it is course. Started. Now it is course. Started. Now it is student. Mhm. Opened. Defining a type of increment student client in your configuration. Something is wrong with my parameter in the student controller course client. Mm, I need to once go to the controller and see here whether it is properly allocated or not. You know what I did? I created the client, but I didn't say anywhere that my student service is actually enabling that particular client. So you do @ in the student service. enable Feign clients. Okay, this line I had not written for student service application. Run this. Awesome. This got started. What else is pending? API gateway. Start this too. So we already checked that whether 8085 slash course slash student, all those things are happening. Now the current one which we did, right? That is the only thing that we need to check. We'll see. Okay. So you open the post one. Okay. Now we are here. Students one. I'm getting one Shilpa CID one, right? We'll come down to this part where we had written our student. Where is the student? And in the controller slash ID slash course. So what I'll do, slash student slash ID one, that is student one Shilpa, slash course. Awesome. So you had returned one map. That map had student as well as course details. So if you notice, student details are here, CID 1, so it is Springboard microservice. If I give it as 2, that is Sandhya's record, I think. I'll run this. So Sandhya 2, that is .NET service and microservice. So we did the communication part. To conclude, okay, I'll stop all the services. By the way, I think I forgot to tell something. This only Eureka service, I'll switch it on. Eight seven 61. So here, you notice that currently when it is running, right, you will have all your dependencies getting added as when the other servers connect, okay? You have just run the Eureka server. So this is what is the available info. Now, if I run core service, mm, did it start the core service? Started student service. I'm going to create. Then we have to go to API gateway. So if you notice, there is this application, this 8085. This is your API gateway when it got enabled, right? This is the one which is your API gateway got connected, in which you already have two microservices which is attached. So this is going to go for this particular location. In that, if you notice, uh, you're having here 8085, you have two IDs mapped. That is core service, and also you have 8082, which is nothing but your um, the student service mapped. Okay. This is what happens when you're trying to, if you notice here, discovery client localhost 8085 is registering. When it says it is registering, basically what you're doing is for your API gateway here, this is the one which you got registered. That is API gateway. Okay. Uh, I did one small change because it was giving IP address, right? In the API gateway, in this application YAML, I have given after Spring application name API gateway. When I give like this, stop your API gateway, come to API gateway, this one, and run this. Once you do this, then you can see your IP address is now registered as API gateway. Okay, you have given a name for that particular application. Okay, so I think uh, most of the parts are done here. So basically, what we did is we created two different applications. One is course, and the other one is Eureka Server. Sorry, student service. And server is important. We need to have Eureka Server. What is the things that we might have missed out? Um, like we might, while writing it down or while doing the program on our own, important points are you have a client, which is that URL in which you want to actually fetch that particular course. Or probably if I have a student and attendance management system, even there this kind of mapping will be happening. You need to have a DTO, because what kind of object you're mapping, that DTO object you need to create. You need to have those paths in the controller as well. So your student slash ID, this ID, don't get confused with the course. This ID is basically for the student ID slash course. When you give what is the student complete name, like a join statement, it is going to provide you entire thing with respect to the course details, map it onto one particular response object and return it. Okay. One more thing that I missed out was this one, adding this. And if you want to have this enable Feign Client and everything for the student service, you have to go to pom.xml and just add these three lines and reload the dependencies. And we are done. Okay. Thank you.